If you're interested in playing Ret Paladin in Dragonflight but aren't sure if it's a spec for you, this is the video that you're looking for. My name is Viability and I've been playing Ret since the Burning Crusade in both PvP and PvE, and today we're going to look over the good, the bad, and the not so pretty about Ret Paladin in Dragonflight. Blizzard's vision of Ret is an unstoppable juggernaut with high burst damage, support healing for days, and unfortunately limited mobility. Let's talk Ret. Ret is a spec with a complicated history. It didn't really come into its own like a lot of specs until Wrath of the Lich King, where the iconic ability Divine Storm breathed new life into the spec. Fast forward to Dragonflight, and the spec has changed a lot. It uses abilities like Crusader Strike and Blade of Justice to generate holy power up to a maximum of 5, and then spend holy power, usually 3 at a time, on heavy-hitting abilities like Templar's Verdict for single target, or Path of Ruin, talented ability for AOE damage. And that's basically the boiled-down version of the rotation. A basic single target and AOE build is in the description below if you'd like to see what the in-game build would look like. While you're grabbing that, don't forget to hodge that like button. The rotation can actually be deceptively complicated. Depending on what talents you take, your action bars could light up like a Christmas tree with several options at any given time. If your haste is too low, however, you'll have the exact opposite problem and be left with empty GCDs. This has been an early expansion problem for Ret for a while, so haste ends up being extremely strong early on. Ret's damage is largely focused on spending holy power at the right time by lining up those big holy power spenders with debuffs and buffs that happen periodically. We have access to a shorter cooldown offensive ability Seraphim and a longer cooldown ability Avenging Wrath. When combined with talents like Final Reckoning, Ret's holy power spenders do huge amounts of damage, albeit they do take some time to get set up. When lined up properly, it's an extremely satisfying and fun spec to play. In PvP, Ret can be extremely powerful because of all of the cooldowns and things that can line up. We can do extremely high burst damage and even one-shot or global people in PvP. The problem is that because of Ret's limited mobility combined with our kind of limited access to slowing down our enemies, we really need to be paired with somebody like a warrior or a windwalker monk or a demon hunter who can really kind of continue to keep those kind of passive slows on the enemy and kind of pin people in place and allow Ret to really nail down those burst damage windows. Defensively, Ret has one big button, and that's Divine Shield or Bubble. This provides several seconds of immunity to all damage, but it's easily removed in PvP by Shattering Throw or Mass Dispel. We also have access to another defensive button through our choice node early on in the tree, but neither of those options is really all that great. It is nice to have a button, though. We do have pretty strong heals in Flash of Light and Word of Glory, but be careful with the latter. It uses Holy Power, which not coincidentally is our biggest source of damage. My advice is to rely on Word of Glory only if your HP is dipping very low and you've taken the Healing Hands talent. Otherwise, focus on Flash of Light and Justicar's Vengeance if you need kind of more consistent healing. Utility-wise, Ret has an arsenal of abilities like Blessing of Sacrifice and Blessing of Protection, a huge heal with Lay on Hands and Devotion Aura, among others. We provide some passive group healing through talents like Judgment of Light and Golden Path and can cleanse diseases and poisons. Ret's mobility is pretty horrible, with the only one movement enhancing skill, Divine Steed, that's on a 45-second cooldown. This can actually be talented to get an additional charge, and in PvP we also get access to an enhanced Blessing of Freedom that slightly increases our speed and becomes undispellable. These together sound pretty good, but in practice, every other melee has way more mobility, so we end up left in the dust. Overall, Ret is an extremely fun spec to play once you get used to the holy power ebb and flow, and embodies the easy to learn but tough to master idea that I think Blizzard wants for every spec. I do have some words of caution for playing Ret. Because it's a single DPS spec for the Paladin class, if it's not tuned properly, other specs will be way more desirable, and historically, Ret hasn't really been tuned to be a top DPS. Because of its access to high-impact spells like Lay on Hands and Divine Shield, Blizzard, maybe rightfully, can't also give us insane damage. And that's fine with me, but in a meta-focused, raid-log-crazed game like WoW, it does tend to take a backseat to other specs. This is amplified by Ret being a melee spec, which also has limited raid spots for top-end guilds. I would be surprised to see a Ret Paladin in any top-tier raiding comp. Let me know in the comments if you plan to play Ret Paladin in Dragonflight. Don't forget to hodge that like button. Peace.